Welcome back to the Crypto Report, everybody. I'm Cryptokip, and today we will be talking about Crypto.com coin, yes, but we will also be talking about crypto as a whole. We'll be diving in pretty deep into El Salvador's decision to purchase Bitcoin and a review by a very large YouTuber, CoffeeZilla. Yesterday, I did a video about CoffeeZilla attacking, yes, Crow Coin and Fortune Favors the Brave slogan on the marketing campaign for Crypto.com. Today is part 2 of that video, and I have the awesome duty of defending El Salvador and cryptocurrency and Bitcoin bros, as he likes to point the finger and come after the Bitcoin bros out there. So if you're a Bitcoin bro, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel. We do 3 videos every single day about cryptocurrency, and when we hit 10,000 subscribers on the channel, we're going to give away $1,000 worth of Bitcoin to one lucky subscriber on the channel, so you don't want to miss out on that. Without further ado, let's jump into it. Let's get into the content. Let's see exactly what's going on here with CoffeeZilla's take on cryptocurrency
and the official currency of
specifically El Salvador's Bitcoin purchase. Let's get into it.
El Salvador for an entire year. So how's it going? Well, here's what the media is saying.
The results have been mixed at best.
President Bukele has invested nearly $100 million of public money on Bitcoin. Most of the coins have not risen in value since being bought.
Using Bitcoin remains a challenge.
Most of the tokens have not been going up in value since they haven't been bought, because he bought them on the way up, which, as we know as cryptocurrency holders, you know, you're not going to make the most profit if you're buying it while it's going straight up. We want to be buying now while it is down in the bear market. And those of us, and I talked about this yesterday, we understand the 4-year cycles. Right now is a bear market. There's a bull cycle. We accumulate now, and then we take profit during the bull cycle. El Salvador just got in last year. I just have to preface that for you right here. Let's continue.
At this grocery store, we held up a line for 10 minutes as the cashier waited for our payment to clear.
They said that the transaction was declined, but on my Bitcoin wallet, it showed that it had gone through.
Okay, so he is showing some content here where they are immediately getting right into Bitcoin, spending $14 at the grocery store in El Salvador. Now, a lot of folks, when they talk about El Salvador and Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, a lot of folks like to immediately talk about it as a form of payment to buy a cup of coffee, buy some groceries. But at the end of the day, that's not really the true intention for Bitcoin. Yes, you can use it for that, and you can use it through some of these applications that they have in different countries, and there's so many different ways to do it. I personally like to spend my cryptocurrency using my Crypto.com card, like we've talked about in some of the previous videos. But I personally just don't love to spend my cryptocurrency for this. So right out of the gates, this is the beginning of the argument. And I think if you're going to start here, this is a weak argument. You know, this is not what the intention is for cryptocurrency. And a lot of people love to latch onto this, that El Salvador is trying to use it for a currency. But I believe that El Salvador, and we'll keep this in mind through the video, is trying to use cryptocurrency as the same way a large company might be putting Bitcoin on the balance sheets. Take a percentage, a small percentage, 5% of the wealth of a company, the cash reserves on a balance sheet, and you put it in Bitcoin, and when Bitcoin does a beautiful 10x, a beautiful 20x, well, that's going to be a huge line of extra revenue that you would have never had unless you bought Bitcoin with a little bit of risk on money. But again, it's a small percentage of the portfolio. And though $100 million is quite a bit of money, it's a fraction of what El Salvador is as a country. You got to keep that in mind through this video. Let's continue with the content. I'm going to skip ahead, by the way, and we're going to go right ahead to 1 minute and 38 seconds where I want to get to my next point. If you guys have not seen this video, I highly recommend you watch the thing in full. I'm going to show you guys clips of this video today and focus on some of the central arguments, but for context purposes, you got to watch the whole thing on your own time, okay? Let's get into it.
You're going to be fans of El Salvador with it becoming a crypto tax haven. Billionaires became fans.
I'm going to back it up a little bit.
Exactly unbiased themselves. Of course, they're going to be fans of El Salvador with it becoming a crypto tax haven.
So he is saying that Bitcoiners are fans of El Salvador becoming a Bitcoin tax haven. It's cool, but it's irrelevant for me and you. He's going to be focusing his argument on the rich in this video. And you and me, you know, we're not rich yet. One day we will be. Maybe you are. If you are, smash the like button. But guys, he's going to focus on the rich here, and you'll see that in a second. And I think it's unfair because when you think about the majority of folks that own Bitcoin, a lot of them aren't rich. There's only a select few of folks that got it in the beginning and are rich, right? Maybe you made a bunch of money, but most of us aren't crypto rich. You know what I mean? Yeah, make some money, sure. But I'm not looking at the tax haven thing. I'm not going to move to El Salvador because of this. So it's a weird argument. Let's continue.
Billionaires became fans of the Cayman Islands for the same reason. So yeah,
So he's comparing Bitcoin holders like you and me to billionaires that look at the Cayman Islands as a tax safe haven, okay?
Cayman Islands for the same reason. So yeah, I'm kind of sick of hearing from Bitcoin bros too. In fact, everyone is. Even the family members of these guys are starting to put their foot down. Here's one of the most popular Bitcoiners saying that he's actually been banned from his family's
Okay, so I'm going to stop right there. So he is coming immediately at, boom, Max Keiser, who's a very eccentric Bitcoin hero, I guess you could say. He's a Bitcoin maximalist. And yes, he was apparently banned from his family's Thanksgiving. But listen to this, guys. He's attacking Bitcoin bros. He's sick of hearing from Bitcoin bros. He does not like the crypto community. He is coming out and he is saying this, and he's jumping on the hate train of Bitcoiners. But what's the research here? There's not a lot of research. But then he goes on to talk about Max Keiser, Bitcoin, and billionaires, and he talks a little bit about the volcanoes, right? In case you didn't know, El Salvador wants to actually start using the volcano energy to create energy to start mining Bitcoin, and Max Keiser was actually going to help in creating volcano bonds, and he goes on to talk about that over the next 2 minutes or so, which is an interesting idea, but it's not like the central thing about El Salvador's Bitcoin adoption. El Salvador's Bitcoin adoption is because it's a third world country, and maybe they want to become a second or a first world country. Well, how can they do that? Well, they're advertising for themselves. They're making the headlines. They're trying to drive Bitcoin adoption in the country so that hopefully they bring some profitability to the country. So hopefully that they make some money and they can take that $100 million they invest in cryptocurrency, build some infrastructure, and help their community to then bring more tourism to inject more money into the economy so they can move from a third world country to a second world, maybe to a first world country one day. But that's going to take some time. They just got in last year. We're off to a really intense start. And, he's immediately jumping on the thing that a lot of people like to talk about, which is, Bitcoin billionaires and tax evasion and Cayman Islands and this and that. So I'm going to skip ahead past the Max Keiser bit, past the volcanoes, and I'm going to move over to the next part of the video. And that is going to be at 3 minutes and 34 seconds. So let's get to that right here.
What's the real situation with Bitcoin in El Salvador a year later? It's time for a deep dive on this.
Boom, deep dive. Boom.
We're going to start at the most obvious place, price. Obviously, a lot of the conversation around Bitcoin for El Salvador is going to center around how it has performed as an asset. And here, things aren't great. El Salvador bought the dip many times, and then the dip dipped many times. They spent over $100 million on Bitcoin in total at an average price of $45,000.
So yes, did they buy Bitcoin high? Absolutely. I've told you guys a story on this channel. I have a couple family members that bought Bitcoin back in 2017 at $20,000, rode it all the way down to $3,000. But then what? They held on for the long term. They dollar cost averaged, and then they rode it back up to 69,000, back down to about 48,000. They sold. They chose to sell. I didn't sell. At 48,000, they made thousands and thousands of dollars. Why? Because yes, they might have bought at the wrong time, but then they held. They bought the dip. They rode it up, and they took profit at the top. He's not going to go on to acknowledge any of that in this. He's just going to focus on this price of $45,000, which is frankly unfair. You got to get in at some price. They got in a little bit of a high price. But if they continue to dollar cost average through this bear market, and there has not been a lot of news about that, but if they are doing that right now, this story will flip this whole conversation upside down. This video will immediately become irrelevant. If they do exactly what my family members did, then he's just way off here. It's an interesting spot to attack. I get it, but it's really easy to attack price action. oh, you guys bought it in the top of a bull market and now it's in a bear market, I'm going to attack you. Sure, I get that. But, context matters. I think you got to understand, again, this 4-year bull cycle that we go through. 4-year bull bear cycle. It's very important to understand the Bitcoin happening, and there's no mention of a Bitcoin happening in this. There's no mention of the future trajectory of the price, except for a slight one at the very end. We'll get to that in a minute. Let's continue here. Let's continue.
Bitcoin is now worth roughly $20,000, which means they've taken a 50% loss on these purchases, which is a huge waste of resources. So sure, you could say they're hodling, but this is a pretty big fail. But of course, that's not...
Okay, so he's saying that it's a big fail. It's just begun. I mean, it hasn't even been, it's been like maybe 365 days. This is a long-term strategy for El Salvador. Again, if you're going to try to change the trajectory of your country and you're going to try to make a bunch of money on Bitcoin and build new infrastructure, that's not going to happen overnight. It's going to happen through a couple bull and bear cycles and dollar cost averaging and holding over time. But again, there's no acknowledgement of that in this video, and it's tough. From here, I'm going to skip ahead because over the next few minutes, he talks a little bit about remittances, and he talks about how important remittances are. And while remittances is an important part to cryptocurrency, he then starts talking about this application. In El Salvador that they really want to use, and he'll get into that in a minute, but it's called Chivo, and I got a problem with this. So let's play this little clip, and I'll get into a little bit more here in a second.
If it did nothing else, that could be a net win for El Salvador. But this only works if people actually use Bitcoin.
So he's talking about remittances and how this would only work if people actually use Bitcoin for remittances. And he's complaining that folks aren't using Bitcoin for remittances. Guys, remittances have been alive for years. People have been doing remittances forever in a variety of different ways. It was postage, and then it was wire transfers, and now it's Bitcoin. But Bitcoin's only been around for 13 years. This is brand new. So he's going to load a bunch of complaints about how people aren't using Bitcoin yet, and that people don't know about it yet, in a third world country where a lot of people don't have access to the internet, and a lot of people just don't have access to some of this information. And he's saying that like people aren't using it, so it's pointless. It's new. At the beginning of the internet, people didn't use the internet. At the beginning of cell phones, not everybody had a cell phone. It takes a while. It takes adoption, and that happens with time. Let's continue.
Use Bitcoin. And that's kind of a problem because this isn't Silicon Valley where everyone has a phone, crypto, and borderline personality disorder. This is El Salvador. 70% of their citizens don't even have a bank, much less cryptocurrency. So it might be a huge challenge for El Salvador to get its citizens to actually even use crypto in the first place.
It might be a challenge, but is it not worth trying something different to bring banking to the unbanked? I mean, it's just an interesting argument. I think it's weak. I mean, I think he needs to just do a little bit more research, and he goes on to attack Chivo. I'm going to skip ahead to a couple more points that I wanted to get to. Again, I highly recommend you check out. If you've never seen ConfiZilla, he makes fantastic content. I just have a problem with his crypto content, and that's exactly what we're diving into here. So let's get to the next point.
They say that the primary interest in Chivo was driven by a $30 bonus that the government gave away with each sign-on, which, for context, minimum wage in El Salvador is only $12 a day. So downloading Chivo and getting $30 for free was the equivalent for some of working almost 3 days straight. So it's a no-brainer. Now, of course...
Okay, so again, he's focused on people aren't going... Bitcoin in El Salvador is not going to succeed because people aren't downloading this app, Chivo. So you got to use Chivo. You can't use MetaMask. You can't use Crypto.com. You can't use this. You can't use that. He's focused on Chivo. He's not acknowledging anything else in the world of cryptocurrency. He's focused on Chivo and the statistics of the people that use Chivo. He doesn't talk about the details of how Chivo works. He just talks about the rate at which people are using them. And he also talks a little bit right here about some of these numbers where 30% how $30 bonus was offered by the government to download the app. And that is equivalent to 3 days worth of work for El Salvadorians. Imagine that. I mean, could you imagine if you worked 3 days for $30? That is a good point to stop on. I want to show you guys this because they are in desperate need of help. And the president is taking a chance. Yes, he's taking $100 million, which again is this much of the whole pie of money that El Salvador has. And he is trying to bring more revenue to the country. He's trying to get El Salvador as a topic of conversation across the globe, which he's been successful at, by the way, which he doesn't acknowledge in this video. And he's trying to bring infrastructure. When the next bull market comes, President Nayib will look like a genius if and when Bitcoin goes back up to all-time highs and to record-breaking numbers. And he will be able to bring infrastructure, and who knows, maybe he'll be able to bring infrastructure, jobs, and get people a salary that might be better than $30 over 3 days. There's no mention of that in this video, and I have a huge problem with that because that's really what I think about when I think about El Salvador adopting Bitcoin. Not this app, not remittances, not buying at the grocery store cryptocurrencies, and I'm certainly not thinking about how it's a tax haven for billionaires. That is not the point, and I think he's missing it. I'm going to continue here. He's going to go on, and he complains all about it here for the next, 3 minutes, all about Chivo. This is the focus of the video, this Chivo app, and now he's talking again about how they're using cryptocurrency as a, form of buying cups of coffee, things like that. That's just not the important part of this conversation. So we're going to move right ahead over to 8 minutes and 50 seconds to his next point.
Quarters, which I don't want to neglect, starting with the actual El Salvadorians. So
now he's going to bring up a great point, which I really like that he acknowledges this. He does do a great job in showing this. This is really important to acknowledge. Let's get into it.
Starting with the actual El Salvadorians. Some would say that Bitcoin is a huge benefit to them because it allows them to do things like pay electric bills in a way they could never do before.
Y lo envío y ahí ya tengo pagado.
Y ya está.
Sí.
Muy fácil.
Sí.
How long, more or less, would it take you in the past to do the same thing?
En lo que voy en el bus, posiblemente una hora.
Wow.
Tal vez una hora de espera en el puerto. Tal vez unas 3 horas para poderlo pagar.
3 hours, and now it's just, boom, instant in your phone.
Sí.
Okay, look.
So he likes this and he acknowledges this, and he's going to throw a but here in a second because, again, he's trying to make his point that he doesn't like cryptocurrency and that it's not good. But this point about this fella right here, how it took him 3 hours to pay his electric bill, but now it's instant because of Bitcoin and because of crypto, this is huge. This should be the primary focus of his video. I think he's just really missing the big picture that cryptocurrency is bringing banking to the unbanked. And yeah, it's not going to happen overnight. And that's his big complaint. He mentions that it's a good thing that they're bringing banking to the unbanked, but he's complaining that it's not here yet. And I just think, you got to look long term. Things just don't happen overnight. I think it's very important. I got to continue with this clip so you guys can kind of see his comments on this, but let's continue.
And if there's a silver lining here, it's people like that benefiting. But in the press, I have to say, those aren't really the people on the front lines pushing the Bitcoin narrative forward in El Salvador. That award goes to rich people who don't get invited to Thanksgiving, but do.
In the press, that's not who's pushing the Bitcoin narrative. Why do you think that might be? The people that get in the press are 9 times out of 10, they are rich people, or it's like a poor woman that survived in a fire or something. It's only the rich that get into the press. And so it's just a bizarre complaint. It's a bizarre thing to attack, and it's a weird place to pivot. It just shows me that there's a lot of large YouTubers out there. There's a lot of large influencers and the media as well that aren't giving Bitcoin and crypto the time of day. They're not doing the research that it deserves, clearly. And I've got to call them out.
Volcano bond donations.
So the idea was floated, hey, put 100.
And then he goes on to complain about the volcano bonds. So I'm going to skip ahead here to my last little segment and kind of how does he wrap up this video? What's his synopsis? This is going to be a longer clip. So bear with me on this one, and we'll sum it up for you here after this one. So let's get into it right there.
Not what they say they're doing. You really have to wonder whether this is about helping poor people or if it's about helping people who are already well off. I mean, if you look at their plan to issue volcano bonds to wealthy investors. They're giving citizenship to wealthy investors. They're giving a tax haven to wealthy investors. They're planning a Bitcoin city supposedly in the shape of a Bitcoin.
I got to acknowledge that all of this is true. These are things that they are doing. But he, again, is not acknowledging any of the infrastructure. If they build a Bitcoin city, by the way, do you think that the infrastructure will be helpful to the Salvadorian communities? Do you think that it might actually bring more brain power to El Salvador? More workers, more jobs, more companies? Think about that. Because CoffeeZilla does not do that in this video. And this is why I'm calling him out. Let's continue.
A Bitcoin. The thing literally looks like El Dorado. You think most of the citizens are going to be able to live there? They plan a lookout at the top of the volcano that looks like you're going to sacrifice to the Satoshi gods. I mean, who are you catering to at this point? If the answer is Thanksgiving refugees, that's fine, but at least say that and be honest about it. Because from where I'm sitting, I see most of the benefit going to the people already at the top. So anyways, that's basically my assessment of El Salvador. Next year, we'll check in again to see how it's doing, see if things have changed, because remember, it's still early. So maybe everything turns around and the Bitcoin bros are right. I don't know. I'm open to that. Either way, pump the stock. Thanks for watching.
All right, so he says he's open to it. I gotta give him some credit. At the end of the video, he does acknowledge that, who knows, maybe over time this could flip around. And CoffeeZilla, thank you for acknowledging that. We need you to acknowledge it. But in the meantime, you know, do a little bit of research on crypto. Think about the other side of the argument. Think about the infrastructure that this could allow El Salvador to build. You know, if you're going to create a video on this, either you're going to bring up those points or I got to create a rebuttal video on the points that are missing. And again, CoffeeZilla, if you're seeing this comment, you're seeing this video, you're seeing this review, I love your channel. You do fantastic work. For those of you in the audience that have not seen his channel, I highly recommend you check him out. Do not get the wrong idea about CoffeeZilla based on this video. He does a fantastic job with 99% of his content. But the crypto content, I'm coming at him because I gotta support the crypto community. I gotta defend our beloved Bitcoin and crypto.com, because at the end of the day, if we want crypto.com to succeed, Bitcoin has got to keep moving forward. Ethereum's got to keep moving forward, because you go to crypto.com to buy Bitcoin, you go to crypto.com to buy Ethereum. It's all crypto, guys. And it's very important that we defend the community. That's what I want to do for you in this video. That is all I got for today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. This is the Crypto Report. I am Cryptokip. Do not forget to smash up a like button, subscribe to the channel. I do 3 videos every single day. And as always, you got a DCA, HODL, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks so much, everybody. I got 2 videos for you right here if you'd like to check them out. Peace.